What if I told you that a large percentage of your leads or your revenue isn't outside there in the wilderness waiting for you to create amazing content or have excellent sales process calls or sales prospecting calls to bring them in? What if I told you a large percentage of the revenue that you're looking for is stuck somewhere already in your process and pipeline? Let's talk about it in this episode of What's the Deal, where we're going to be talking about lead management, deal management, and the gaps that's involved. Let's go. Hey, what's up, y'all? Today, my name is Lyndon Bradford, first and foremost, and welcome to another episode of What's the Deal? What's the Deal is a series where we are going to be addressing some core sales related issues. But the main focus is not really just to highlight the issues on sales, it's really to kind of dig deeper into what it's all about, where does it come from, how do we go about fixing it, how is it actually impacting the customer, like what's the deal, what's everything that we can understand about this particular topic. And this particular topic is near and dear to me because of the fact that I have seen my own examples as it relates to gaps while being a sales manager, gaps while being an entrepreneur, and just understanding sometimes why we put so much emphasis on lead gen, there are other issues as to why we are not closing the deals or hitting the targets that we are supposed to be hitting. And that a lot of that comes down to how we manage those respective leads. Now, I have a couple stories to share as it relates to that. And what we're going to be touching on in this particular episode wouldn't just be the perspective of, it wouldn't just be the perspective of us just talking about a whole set of things as it relates to leads, but I want to really get into the nitty gritty of where some of those leads are and what could be some of the gaps that you are experiencing as a sales manager, as a VP of sales, because of the fact that you are accountable for a specific number. And that number is important to you, it's important to your organization, it's important to your shareholders. Even as a sales rep or even as an entrepreneur, it's important to you for a number of reasons as it relates to lifestyle. And because sometimes we don't take a very deep look at what our numbers are, we tend to find ourselves doing a whole lot of different things, putting a lot of effort and energy in a number of different areas. And one thing that has been really near and dear to me over the last couple of areas, over the last year or so, as where I put a lot of support. I've recognized that I could put a lot of support towards helping sales reps, not because they have bad sales skills, it's just they have bad lead management and deal management skills. Apart from that too, as a sales trainer and a coach, and also as a former manager, really taking the time to look at, if a client is asking me for sales training, then where should I really be putting the emphasis? We're going to kind of get into that a little bit. because in the sales engagements that I've had with training, I personally have recognized where I didn't need to execute in those areas, or this wasn't for everybody, or I just needed to do 2 modules out of 10, quote unquote. But that also comes from me doing better discovery with my clients to really understand exactly where the gaps are and focus on those gaps. So that's what we're going to be talking about today as it relates to lead management and deal management and everything that it actually tells us, and why it's so important to have processes in place. Yeah. So let's kind of get into it a little bit. All right. And I want to maybe start with, I want to kind of start with looking at this. So let me start with this here. So what you're seeing here is a spreadsheet that I put together just about a year ago, because it was a glaring example of what a problem was or is inside of an organization. So we had 3 sales reps, sales rep A, B, and C, and the target for the sales reps was, let's say, around 72 units. And in some instances, there's a stretch target of 100 units. And basically what we're looking at here is that we're seeing where we have, at the end of the financial year, we have 1 sales rep out of the large number. I'm just using 3 as a sample for this example, where we have 1 particular sales rep that's actually hitting their target. Right now, there's a lot to unpack with this, but the main area that I want us to focus on is not so much so the conversion, but the open lead status. This side right here. Right? The open lead side of it. Because what this represented was a number of leads that I don't want to use the word unaccounted for, but it was a gap as it relates to, these were some leads that we weren't able to account for. And by understanding what the conversion rate is, right? So we have bad leads, lost leads, etc., and missed leads. That's inside here. If it is that we had a structure, if organizations had some particular structure in place, any of these 3 sales reps could have been able to hit their targets or generate an additional $35, $11, or $12 million, or 132, 40, or 47 additional unit sales. And that in its own way represents a gap. And that gap stems from lead management. Organizations properly managing leads to be able to give them the ability to see what it is, to see what's happening in the organization. And because of that, again, when I did the full example or the full assessment, I came up with a figure that's anywhere close to around $59 million. There's it down there. And that's just 3 reps that we couldn't fully account for as it relates to some of where these leads are. So again, when we're looking at lead management, when we're looking at deal management, what is that structure? Now, mind you, there is no formal structure in place within the organization, right? Everyone sort of does their thing their own way. Every sales rep has his or her own style of managing their leads. So the structure isn't there. And as it relates to the managers as well, they don't know. So if a sales rep does well, they are unable to say why the sales rep did well. And if a sales rep didn't do well, they are also unable to say why the sales rep didn't do well. Or it's assumed that they prospected bad, or they whatever the synopsis. And these are I'm saying this because these are some of the conversations I have recognized that I myself have sometimes engaged in with organizations when talking about certain things along the lines of sales training or sales development. And then even when I look back at my past as a sales manager and the types of sales training I've been involved in, there were instances where if we had just focused on the gaps in this area, it could have helped us make a fundamental difference in terms of our outputs. So let's talk a little bit about lead management and deal management. So what is lead management? Well, as we have it here, it's the process of capturing, tracking, qualifying, and nurturing prospective customers or leads. And it's important to understand those highlighted words. It's a process of capturing, tracking, qualifying, and nurturing. I'm actually going to show you a resource that I used a while back while talking about the story of Marcus, where these words came up, because in his day-to-day, capturing, tracking, qualifying, and nurturing is important in his sales role. Yeah. And this happens across the board, right? And this is done in collaboration with through marketing activities or your marketing department, through sales activities, with the sales departments. So it is a real thing in terms of how do you want to bring particular leads in. Why is it important? Well, you can look at it from two sides. From the sales rep side, it's efficiency, because you want to make sure that you are a lot more efficient. You want to make sure that you're maximizing your efforts. You want to also give priority to the leads that are important. So if you are attracting the right type of leads, or leads are being passed on to you, how do you prioritize those leads based upon how are they personalized? So you're giving them prioritization based upon the buckets that they actually fall into, right? And also, from an engagement standpoint, it helps you build the right type of relationships. It helps you build trust. We see these things happening now by the use of social selling, by the use of social media. On another side now, as it relates to the company, it's a strong area of understanding where your revenue is, because we are selling to someone, whether it's government, whether it's B2B, whether it's B2C. Proper lead management, as its leads are coming into your funnel, is important, because those the customers are the ones that give you the revenue. But if you have the right instruments and tools, it gives you the ability to understand your leads, and your leads is really data within your system, and that information gives you the ability to make the right decisions. And the last one, as you're seeing there, it gives you a strong ability to have a competitive advantage, because the more you understand your leads, the better for you as a sales professional or as an organization. So you have some basic stages as it relates to leads. And those stages really cover things along the lines of lead generation. If you're in marketing, even if you're in sales or as an entrepreneur, you would hear of these terms. Then you talk about lead qualifying. You hear people talk about things like ICP. It's a lot of stuff that's thrown around there. All right. There are certain activities that you have to do when it comes to nurturing the leads, because you have leads that are different stages of the buying process. So some leads that are in their own journey at the beginning of the stage, in the middle of the stage, and at the end of the stage, which means if they're at the end of the stage, you're more ready to buy now, and maybe they may have been following you, or they have a good relationship with you, so they're ready to make the purchase or transaction with you. Or they're at the very beginning of the stage, and they are now kind of coming through, realizing, okay, I have a need. Who do I buy from? Who facilitates me getting what I need to get? So a lead is really that potential customer. And of course, lead conversion is the activities to move the lead. This is through your sales or your marketing teams, whether you're purely digitized or you have a team, purely digitized or have a team, you have some sort of conversion type activity where that lead now either converts all the way to a customer. You have early stage conversion as well, right? So people may fill out a form, they may download certain things, but at the end of the day, it's some sort of activity where the person sort of raises their hand to say, I have an interest in something that you have to offer. And this is where the entire strategy comes into place. Yeah. What's a sales process now? Because sometimes people may have a little mix up between what a sales process is and what a lead process is. Well, it's a balance between the organization's process and also what the with the customer's journey to an extent, right? And when we're looking at sales processes, it's a visual representation of, as I said here, the customer's journey. And in some instances, it's mostly tied into the organization's selling process. Sometimes that can seem very one-sided because you really should be aligning the buyer's journey to your sales process, so you'll know how to market better to your ICPs based upon the different stages. But if we're taking it directly as from the context of this, where it's a visual representation of the customer's journey from initial awareness stage all the way down to purchase. You would have seen me in the past speak about something called the AIDA principle. And the AIDA principle is really awareness, interest, desire, and action. Your sales process should follow those stages. Sometimes we have very hard and fast sales processes that doesn't match the buyer's journey at all, because we want the customer or the lead to follow our process. And that's why sometimes you have misalignment in sales. It's maybe one of your first gaps, that your sales process isn't fully aligned to the buyer's journey. That might be gap number one. And hence the reason why, if there's any level of friction between your process and the customer's journey, then more than likely they'll go where things might be a lot better aligned as it relates to their journey, right? And the second part of it says it maps out the different stages that the lead goes through to becoming a customer. Again, alignment. So if you're not well aligned in that mapping or process, then you're not going to have the ability of closing or building relationships with those customers. So why is it important? Well, similar to what we just said before, visualization. Anyone who's really paying attention to that process, the sales process, what is it that you have in the sales process? Then it gives you the ability, once you have the ability to see it, then it gives you the ability to really understand what's happening in your business. How many leads do we have? Where are the leads coming from? Who are the leads? What is happening from stage to stage as it relates to where these leads are? What is the lead's journey? Which area slows down the most? And that's kind of what the second part is, where we talk about optimization. Because if you are paying attention to your sales process, then you will understand where some of your gaps are. And then based upon that, then you have the ability of aligning your strategies accordingly. So the importance of having a sales process, but as we said here before, having that sales process that's also aligned to the buyer's journey gives you the ability, especially when it comes to the last two, strategy alignment and optimization, is extremely important. So in essence, this is what a standard sales process looks like with most organizations. So what we're going to be talking about here is that we're going to kind of start going into the areas of where the gaps are. So on average, we are looking at we have an area where the leads come in. So that funnel, those leads are then brought across as it relates to meetings. From the meeting, based upon the type of organization that you have, you may want to do a demo, a trial, a proof of concept, a test drive. Again, based upon your business, your sales process may look very different to this. But at some point also, after that middle stage, you may then want to make an offer to the customer. And you want that offer to be accepted by the customer. This is where it goes towards closing the sale. All right. So if you don't have something like this mapped out, then what you're going to notice here is this could be one of the main areas of your gaps as well, because we need to have your process mapped out, because you want your sales reps or your marketing strategy, whether it's fully online or whether it is a hybrid between sales teams and marketing teams, you want to make sure that at each stage of this, there is some sort of next step or strategy. But in many instances, there isn't, because organizations, from my observation and expertise, they do a very good job as it relates to bringing the leads in. All right, so the leads come in, and that's great. But what happens there is that instances where there's something called drop off. So the leads, so based upon the volume of leads that you're bringing in, some of them go across to where the meetings are, and you want to be able to qualify. I've just shortened the word qualify there, right? But then there's a drop off between lead to meeting, and between meeting to demo, there's a drop off. Between demo to quotation, there's a drop off, and between quotation to having a closed opportunity, there's a drop off there as well. The interesting thing with that is there are many instances where organizations are unable to identify that, because if you know what the percentage is, in this instance, what you're seeing here is that there's a percentage drop off. And if you could understand why, then it gives you the ability to mitigate, because your revenue is right there. So look at it. If you have no idea as to how much of those leads are dropping off, so the leads that are coming into your funnel that are not making it in front of a sales rep, then you don't know. You just have leads. You have leads coming in. That's cool. I got leads. But apart from that, how much leads? It's like sometimes I hear customers saying to me, yeah, but Linda, we're still closing sales. And I sometimes have to ask them, but what about the sales that you did not get? How much of all that was coming in trickled down? What percentage was there some churn or some attrition? And there's always a little scratch of the beard, or they're looking up in the sky, because it's a question that many people, they just can't answer. And this is where this comes in. This is where this comes in. You have to be able to at least answer, hey, I think out of all the leads that we get, 20% drops off, or 20% converts and 80% drops off. But why do they drop off? There's I may butcher this term, or this quote, but I always like to say that colleague of mine, Sean Amaro, he says, opportunity is in the area of the process that is not well managed. Let me say that again. Opportunity is in the area of the process that is not well managed. So if we go back here and we recognize that we are not managing any one of these stages properly, or there's a gap where there is attrition, there's leakage somewhere, then we don't know. Because if we had to take a little bit of a look at this, check this out. Speaking with someone recently in the automotive space, young female professional, and she is saying, I want to bring this up a little bit closer for you, all right? Because these are, I mean, if you're looking at this as a sales manager, if you're looking at this as a sales rep yourself, this is you, right? I'm looking for new customers, but I literally have them right there in the system. That's exactly it. I've been searching when I should have just been working the leads I already have. And if I had to give you a little bit of a backstory with this, is that this particular sales rep achieved their target, but was 15% short of hitting a centenary goal. Just 15%. They needed 15 deals to hit 100. And they were short of that. So while you're putting a lot of effort in terms of bringing these leads in, not even understanding the lead cycle, because those are things that I was able to help share with them as well. Like, it takes you between 15 to 30 days to convert. So if you are on the home stretch of trying to close up your financial year, then do you have enough time based upon your selling frequency? And that's a metric in itself. That in itself, it's its own gap. But those are the things that if you don't have the information, if you don't have the tools to help you understand that, then you are sometimes going to find that your sales team, your reps, are putting a lot of the activities, at the top of the funnel, tofu, and not at the middle or the end of the funnel. Because in this instance, she needed to work in the middle of the funnel and at the end of the funnel. not at the top of the funnel. And again, this is where alignment, if we go back to what that thing was saying, alignment is so important when it comes to your sales. So let's continue. So what do the gaps look like? So we're just going to look at from one stage to the next. So we're going to look at where the leads drop off, where the meetings drop off, where the leads drop off either at the top, if they drop off at the meeting stage, if they drop off at the demo stage, and what these things could be saying to us, right? Because it could mean something totally different in your organization based upon what your sales process is, but it is important to understand. So let's say you have leads that I would have dropped off, let's say in the early stages. Well, then it could be a number of different things, because if your marketing team is doing certain activities and your sales team is doing certain activities, then on the marketing side, that would be MQL or marketing activities, and on the sales side, that's sales activities. All right. So if you are looking at that, then what we're going to be paying attention to is that the potential gaps could be the marketing strategy. The marketing strategy could be generating the wrong leads. So when a sales rep calls those leads, or if a marketing personnel is calling those leads, they're not good leads. So the lead quality is poor because the lead generation strategy is also poor. The messaging and the marketing, or they may be trying to market to everybody, so there's no specific demographic, so there's no ICP. And even from on the sales side, the sales could be replicating the very same thing. The sales reps could be saying the wrong things in terms of their sales outreach. They could be looking at the wrong demographic of customers, or even if you are trying to sell something in a specific period, they may still be trying to sell something that doesn't align with whoever the target audience is for that thing. There are so many different scenarios as it relates to selling and the gap. And that starts off with the lead. So sometimes when we look nice and we have a whole bunch of leads, it's not until somebody begins having a conversation with them, or the lead begins getting more information. Because I have heard some crazy stuff like this, right? I've heard people filling out forms, having the conversation, and then they say, oh, that's not for me. Now, it could be the fault of the person who is filling out the form, but I sometimes tend to find that difficult to accept 100%, because again, if your marketing strategy and communication is of a particular consistent style, it wouldn't feel as though this is for everybody. I was doing some work with my colleague JB, Jared Best Mitchell, a while back. This was last year in the automotive space. And the question was asked, who's your customer? And one sales rep blurted out, everybody. That cannot be the answer, because not everybody is a customer for what you're selling. Some customers have, based upon what their existing circumstances are, they don't qualify. So in your messaging, maybe you need to start putting, apart from just the price, maybe you should also put a prerequisite should be a DSR of XYZ instead of just putting the price. Because sometimes when you do spend time with the customer and then you realize that their DSR is high, or showing them how to calculate their own DSR, they wouldn't feel as though they wouldn't be wasting your time and they wouldn't be wasting theirs. But again, it goes back to this messaging, top of the funnel communication to your prospects, to your potential leads. If that is wrong, then you're going to start wrong off the bat, because you are throwing a big net and everybody's your customer. And whatever you get, yeah, well, we get something. I don't know. If that's what you want to do, I guess that's great. Maybe you have a really good team, a big team that could manage sifting through the bad customers or bad leads. But if I have a team, I want my team to be efficient, and I want my team to be focused on the right quality of leads, because I'm not training them to sift through garbage. The other one is meeting drop off. So how many leads made it across to the meeting, but from the meeting, they didn't go to the next stage? Again, they could just be bad leads. Again, it could be along the lines of marketing. If the first stage in your sales process is meeting, because you can put certain messages out there, people could click on links, and that is to book a meeting. We have those things. But if the first stage in your thing there, when the sales rep does meet the client doesn't really qualify. So when they're doing an MQL or SQL with the customer, marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead, you realize that, wait a minute, this lead is not even good. So they're not the best fit. But there's a flip side to that, because I've always heard marketing say that sometimes you bring in the right leads, but sales not doing a good job. So you do have that. You have instances where sales drops the ball when the leads are actually coming in. It could be lead response time. There's no structure in there. There are no SLAs or KPIs to tell your sales team when a lead is coming through marketing, I need for you to respond within 24 or 48 hours. And also, this is the approach I want you to take when you are qualifying the lead, because marketing has to get that information back. Even on the sales side, if you are going on reaching out to a customer to do a presentation, how much research have you done before you even had the presentation or had the meeting with the customer? Did you even need to have that meeting? Or are there things that you could have picked up on even from doing the research or having the call? So I'm flipping it on both sides here, because sometimes it's not just the lead. It could be the efficiency of the sales team or from the marketing efforts. Two sides of the coin. At the same time too, while having the meeting, the lead could be a good lead, but if the sales team isn't doing a good job, it means that there's discovery call strategies are wrong. They don't know how to have a proper discovery call to identify customers' leads. Again, because they don't have a proper understanding of the ICP, then it also means that they are unable to, really have a good discovery. And if you have a bad discovery call, even if that moves to the next stage, that lead is more than likely not going to close. They might take a quotation from you, but they may not convert, because you have someone who's weak at different stages, or weak doing the wrong things at different stages. So when we are looking at meet and drop off, there are a myriad of different reasons as to why leads don't move. And notice I have on the far right hand side why and what percentage and what is the value of that, because every lead has a potential value. And if you are measuring that, then you will know, then if 50% of my leads just come up to 12, and those 12 leads is $100 per lead, then that's $1,200 in potential sales I'm losing. Again, paying attention, being analytical about your stuff and tracking those things is important. The other one could be demo. So the customer did have the meeting, and yes, they're still interested in the demo. So you have the demo with them. But there are gaps, because if they didn't move from demo to proposal, it possibly means that the demo was bad. They wanted to see, but the demo was bad. Here's the thing, the demo could be bad because of poor discovery. So that goes back to the previous step. So if an SDR or if a sales rep is gathering information to carry to a pre-sales team, or a sales rep gathering information to do his own demo, the information that he or she would have picked up means that he or she is going to do a bad demonstration, or that demo team is going to do a bad presentation, because there was a bad discovery. Certain things were not picked up before, and the wrong set of information was sent. So we just kind of demoing a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't narrow into what the customer wants the thing for. And I'm speaking specifically to my B2B folks here, where you are in that solution phase or space, especially when you have to utilize things like consultative selling. These are your gaps. Yeah. Then it could be too much demo. You demo everything because you're just not sure. So you just throw the listen, this is everything that this thing could do, and you figure out what you want. If that's the case, then you really didn't show the customer the solution. So more than likely they are going to figure it out for themselves. And sometimes somebody else might help them make sense of it, your competitor. And the competitor is going to eat your lunch. There's a sales book, I can't remember the name of the author right now. Right? Then there could be certain things like there's no clear next steps. So what is the next step with the customer? So Mr. Customer, what is your next step in terms of the process based upon what you've seen? Because while you are doing your demo, you could also be doing discovery. That is a technique in sales. So there are ways that you can ask particular questions while doing your presentation because you are still doing discovery. And based upon how you get the discovery, that takes you across to the next stage. So then that now you get the ability of setting clear next steps. And the biggest one of all as it relates to sales is that there's no follow-up. And I think no follow-up could go along the lines of all of them. So the customer did move from the demo phase and they're now in the proposal phase. You put your proposal together because some things do reach this far and there's no follow through, there's drop off. The easiest one I'll go with is lack of follow-up because that happens. Yeah. But apart from that though, the proposal could be very unclear. And again, all of this ties back to discovery. What is the problem? What is the impact of the problem? And what is the solution? What part of the solution is best suited for the customer? What could they take now that would give them wins in the short, medium, and long term? And if you cannot illustrate that in your proposal, then again, you may have a proposal writing problem, which I had once because I didn't fully grasp the value proposition strategy. I'm much clearer on that now, much better at it now. Pricing could also be a thing, which also factors into discovery. Like, why wait until you offer the price, and not even realize what is the customer's budget in the first place? Yeah. Now the customer could cancel on their own because certain things could come up. But then again, because of objections, and again, this is where, as I was saying in the previous slide, you should be doing, and there's a strategy in sales where you could do discovery all through your sales process. At every single stage, you are doing some sort of discovery. And if you're not doing that, then when you reach the proposal stage and you get the surprise, like, oh, wait a minute, what this price, and you can't handle the price, or how do you align a price objection back into a response like, what were you, I don't want to say it like that. I don't want to say like, what were you expecting, right? But if a customer is saying something like, this price is a little bit expensive or more than what we were looking at, then a good way to manage that, you can ask the question in relation to, so who are you comparing us with? Because that gives you the ability to more discovery to identify, well, are you comparing apples to apples? Or if the scale of your problem is this, and this is the work that we have to do, standard market value is X. Because maybe your price might be spot on, but the customer didn't budget properly. And again, all of these things are the things that you get the ability to do through the different stages of your process. And hopefully you don't reach this part of the conversation where it's proposal time and not understand that, because you could be, when you're doing your discovery and you put your price forward in the beginning and you say particular things like, okay, well, based upon what I'm hearing, a solution like this may normally start at X. How has your organization gone about allocating budget? What was the type of information that you were looking at to give you an idea as to, what the budget? Because sometimes your customer could be doing research, they could be talking to a competitor, they may just be analyzing certain things and they come up with their own price point. budgetary price point. So when you do meet with them, they may realize, oh, we want to do this, but I realized we didn't allocate enough budget. Or they are speaking to someone else who's trying to give them a really deep discount, or they may be trying to go cheap. As they say, champagne tastes, mobby pockets. But again, it's how you manage those conversations to be able to give you the ability, so you don't wait until all the way down to the end. You throw a proposal out there, and then you realize, and then everything else falls apart. And what happens? It doesn't move forward. It drops off. There are so many variables as it relates to your sales, but I want you all to also pay attention to this. Understand that I'm talking about if we do things right in the beginning sometimes. Then you got to realize, you further down you get into your sales process, yeah, you are consistently mitigating issues. And also, you actually, maybe you might catch on something where you just don't need to go to the proposal stage, because you already identified that you don't have the budget. We know that we can solve your problem. Or how do we scale now? So if you now need me to now scale back, could we do in tranches? Could we do a phase 1? Then from phase 1, could we do a phase 2? And from phase 2, could we do a phase 3? See where I'm going with that? But the management, that's a gap in itself, in terms of how does that salesperson approach the sale? Because if you have poor discovery and you reach all the way down here, that's a bad strategy altogether. But it's a specific thing that's happening at the discovery, into the demo, into the proposal stage. It's very, very specific gap. I like to look at this because what I've been recognizing, if I go to the gym, if you're in basketball, if you are in track and field, they don't just train you on everything. There are specific things that you may have that you may be very good at. You may have your strengths, but you may also have your weaknesses. So what they do is that they focus on the weaknesses. They work on amplifying those strengths, but they also focus on the gaps. That is why they look at film, and that's why they also have a process. So if you are focusing on the gap, then you can realize that those gaps in your sales process, in your lead management process, they represent a number of different things. And hear me out here, you can take a very strategic approach in terms of how you train and develop your team. So when you're looking at sales training, or when you are looking at some sort of sales development, and a sales trainer asks, where's the gap? Because those are the questions I go after. Tell me exactly where you're seeing the issue. How much of this happened? How much of that did not happen? That is where you are now being very, very laser focused on where is the most impact. Like, where is the area that I can help you and your team the most? And I'm saying this because, again, I have recognized on my own where even in an engagement with training, I have to split that training up. Top tier professionals, sales professionals, medium tier professionals, 2 different types of training. I do not need to do the same type of training for the 2 people. As a matter of fact, there are certain instances where I've also seen that the modules of what I will offer smaller. I may offer a laser focused module that just focuses on this. And after we do this, then let's maybe look at that. But right now, your biggest area in your gap is here. So let's do that. And how do we now build an objective-based outcome from that? And then we move to the next phase, and the next phase, and the next phase. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I'm sharing this, as a sales manager, as a VP of sales, I want you all to be able to understand your stuff better. So when I hear people say, well, I need for my team to prospect better, the question is going to be, tell me about your prospecting. If you're thinking that prospecting is the issue, tell me, like, is it that they're not finding the right leads? Is it that they don't have enough leads? Is it that marketing is bringing in the wrong thing? How much of that is converting? What specifically is leading you to prospecting? Because if you're only going to tell me that we're not closing enough sales and you're tying that back to prospecting, that is a gap. It tells me that you don't have a full appreciation of your process. So you're just looking at one outcome. You're just looking at an output and choosing any input to say this is the problem. And sometimes that's not the problem. I want us to be more systematic in terms of sales development internally. I want you all to be able to be better. The objective is for you all to be better buyers of the services. And unless you have the ability of doing that, then having conversations, I don't want people to buy the wrong way. And even when it comes to structuring internally, I was privileged at one time to be part of an organization who was really taking the time to understand their gaps. And they were internally building a learning and training development center. And I was part of that initial team. And we came together and we had specific modules to train on, specific topics. So even all the way down to finance. So finance got involved, and finance will teach the sales reps about certain things as it relates to procurement and this and that and the third. And that was good for us because we understood what the process might be in an organization of that size of our organization. Or what is the standard procurement process, and because a procurement officer and an end user for a piece of equipment is two totally different people. They're looking at different things. So the conversations and the questions is different. But I'm saying that because we replicated, I'm talking about replicating an experience, because I think more organizations should be doing this for themselves. So that when you engage trainers like myself or Adrian Havelock or Jared Best Mitchell, it's not a generalized thing, unless you want it to be. And if those guys have the expertise to be specialized in a specific area, great. But at least you want to pinpoint your area, because you have identified your gap. I want to close on this by saying this. Some years ago, we hired somebody to do some training for us. This was many, many years ago while I was in corporate. And while going through that process, as a matter of fact, I was not part of the process. This was done by my BU head and his senior. And the unfortunate thing was, exactly what I'm speaking of is exactly what happened. The gentleman came in. We spent 3 days with him at the time, throughout a myriad of different modules. But only now, in my expertise, because I've taken the time to really study this thing as a practitioner, I look back now and I can say, you know what? Our thing was prospecting. I think one of the main areas was generating the right leads. That was one. And having enough of those leads in the pipeline. I think that's the main area that we needed to start off at. So the training for that would have been different. It would also been a different cost to the organization, because it would have now been a specific type of training. We figured some of it out for ourselves because we started to do our own marketing and sales activities. And with every marketing activity we did, we recognized that we were able to convert one customer. And that turned into 2 customers and then 3 customers. But we had already spent the money. Again, the objective here is I want organizations to be better buyers. And I want you all to really now pay attention to your own gaps, so that when you're engaging guys like myself and my other colleagues, you are coming to us with a little bit more information, and not just, we feel this is the situation and that is the situation. At least for me, I would know specifically that I am able and willing to support that. Because if it's too generalized, it may not be something that I would do because I don't know if you're going to get the return, because we're just kind of focusing on everything. And that's why I would always say checking a box is not really my style. You know, what specifically is the area, which area, how much does that impact you out of the four things that we've identified? And from there, excuse me, which one do you want to start with? Let's shortlist a problem. And let's have some accountabilities, let's have some objectives, and let's see what the results are from there. Because sales is a serious thing. It's a strong part of an organization's operations. So the approach to that has to be just as serious, just as systematic. So if you want to understand a little bit more as to how I do this in terms of how I make certain approaches, here are some resources that I would always leave with you all. All right. Let me start from the last one on the far right. The last one there speaks on building a sales pipeline, step-by-step guide as one. The last one, the one in the middle, speaks to 8 sales KPIs, and this is very important. We have to focus on KPIs. We have to focus on numbers. It says 2024, but these KPIs are across the board. And of course, the first one in the front is maybe one of the more recent examples, because this kind of speaks to everything that I was talking about with Marcus, everything that I just shared there. All right. But I've been working with this person one-on-one, but we're actually beginning to see his results. Him surpassing his target last quarter of the last year, as opposed to this year, by 10 new units, 10 additional sales. Him having a pretty good looking pipeline. The only thing keeping him back is the organization, you know. But so how do you go about building pipeline and changing your approach? But how do you also use particular tools with that? Right here, we're talking about where potential opportunities around $47 million in terms of 141 deals stuck. We're doing this. And what are the outcomes and the strategies, and what tools and stuff is being used as it relates towards achieving these things? Yeah. And I'll say the last one would be, there's a pretty nice magazine called Revenue Magazine. I think it's www.revenuemagazine.com. And Revenue Magazine, they have some nice topics as it relates to the true cost of poor lead qualification. That's kind of top and middle of the funnel, right? And then the discovery baggage, the silent killer of pipeline creation. If you can't do good discovery, as I was saying from before, then you're not going to have a very good outcome at the end of it. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my time. Lead management, deal management, but really the sales gaps. And really, again, my objective is I want organizations to really sit down and think, do I know about what's happening in my stuff before I even bring anybody else? Can I do that? Can I properly assess what's happening? Because I've had too many conversations between 2018 to now. When I look back, one of the main gaps is sales leaders, not really having a clear understanding of what's happening in their sales process. They just know that they're not hitting their numbers, or they know that they want to do more. And that's about it. As I say, I want you all to be better customers of anything, any sales related service, sales enablement, sales training. And that requires being a little bit more knowledgeable of understanding what your gaps are. So if you enjoyed this, feel free to leave a comment or like or subscribe. Look out for more as it relates to this. We are going to be going a little bit deeper into strategies along the lines of better lead management and deal management. We are also going to be focusing on getting heavy into, as we start March 1st, we're going to be going heavy into customer relationship management strategies, because we're CRM strategists, and we're going to be looking at everything that touches the customer, every department that touches the customer, where your leakages can be as it relates to revenue, because we're looking at marketing being lead gen, sales being lead conversion, and service being customer retention. All of those things are revenue. Take care, guys. Have a great, great weekend and productive sales week. And I will catch you all in the next session. Peace.